I will open the meeting to privilege of the floor throughout the conversation as we deem necessary, but as Sarah suggested, I think we ought to go around the room and introduce ourselves to one another for the benefit of those that don't know us. Start with you, Ryan.
Ryan Davis, Ontario County Economic Development. Dave Sutter, Town Board.
John Casey, Town Board and Chair of the Committee.
Gary Fennelly, Board.
Chuck Euler, Planning Board.
Tom Harvey, County Planning Director.
Sarah Reynolds, Town Planner.
Kim Burkhardt, ECB and Town Staff.
Greg
Westbrook, interested participant.
And we don't have any online.
Correct.
I do have a comment though for the open.
Yeah, I'm gonna open it,
Okay,
Greg. So let's get ready to do the business first. Let's get the meeting minutes from last month approved. Has everyone had a chance to review them?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? So moved. And I will open up the floor now. Greg, if you have some things you want to
just
add.
a funny joke for today. Item 3 under committee business, discussion on accessory swelling units. You call it dwelling.
They could be swelling if they're,
Take a tiny house, make
yeah,
a big
have
house.
swelled up.
Swells.
So for the benefit of our new participants, we started talking, I want to say a month ago, maybe even 2 months ago, about dwelling size, and we were uncertain whether the town had any ordinances pertaining to that, and in fact, we do. There is an ordinance on the books that says that homes must be 1,100 square feet or greater here in the town of Canandaigua. And I think that's for all zoning districts, if I'm not mistaken. So we started talking about that, whether 1,100 is the right number. And during the course of that conversation, it was brought to everyone's attention that the county did some studies relative to homes and housing and the needs for housing in the Ontario County area. And we thought that it might be a good idea to have you, Ryan, and you, Tom, both participate and kind of tell us what the county's thoughts are relative to housing and housing sizes and needs, and that would help us continue our conversation at the town level.
I think Ryan and several of us head up a task force the county administrator put together at the board's direction to study this issue. We're going to do a series of presentations all around the county and reach out to talk about it. So we're not going to do a formal one today, or we're not quite ready yet. But let me just hit a couple highlights, and Ryan, I think you can go ahead and weigh in. It's an issue. One of the things that speaks to your particular topic right now is the fact that, you know, back in 1970, the average home size, new home was, you know, under 1,500 square feet. And now we're to a point where the average new home is over 2,000. That's one of the issues that we see that's driving the marketplace. And we had a slight decrease from 2010 to 2020, responding to that, but
It went down to 2,100.
yeah, exactly. It was up over, it was like 2,200 square feet. And I apologize, I left my computer at the with all the statistics, but take it with a grain of salt. You know, the report's posted. We can send you that link if you don't have it, to the whole study. And I guess we did this whole project to you know, in my mind, set the table for all the municipalities, because obviously the county doesn't have land use regulatory authority. But we took it on because it's a issue that transcends the individual municipal boundaries. And we thought we could put the information together to allow you guys to see what the need is and then decide what's appropriate for your town. So a couple of the huge things are, lot sizes and density, and then home sizes as well. Couple of the anecdotal things that we see, I will share one of them. It was kind of a real eye opener to us. And then you'll see why one of the big recommendations in regard to home sizes was made. So the anecdote was, I believe, from a developer. They had a project in Monroe County. I believe it was Webster, but it really doesn't matter. And he came in with a development that he was aiming at senior citizens or people 55 and older, at least, that were empty nesters and wanted to move out of a detached single family home, but didn't want to move into an apartment complex or a townhouse where I had to park on the street, right? So attached garage, still had go into the house from the attached garage. But that was his market. So smaller homes. And what he ended up finding was he sold over half his units to first-time home buyers. And the reason was that's what they could afford, is a first home to start to build their wealth and their equity in a home. So the marketplace was telling them something that, was not intuitive to them. And one of the recommendations we made in our housing assessment was that, there is a need for a much broader spectrum and different type of ownership patterns than your typical detached single family dwelling. There's a market out there, and when two people, two income household, this is another anecdote, right? Looking for a home in Canandaigua, decide that they can build a home in Mendon cheaper. We have a problem here in Ontario County. It's not just people moving into the area, it's also, and I think this is our concern, making sure we have a future where the people who have families and the families, as the children grow up, want to stay in this area, have a reasonable chance to find housing in this area that they can afford. And right now that's a problem. You can have a well-paid, two professional couples, or people rather, a couple that are teachers in Canandaigua School District and can't afford a house in Canandaigua. And, they have a, $130,000, $140,000 a year household income, almost double the average household income or median household income in Ontario County. They can't afford to live here. That's a problem. You want to add, Ryan?
Purdue. So I was able to find it's 2,190 square feet is the average house, home built size from 2010 to present, with a sticker price of about $332,000. And that number's drastically low because that was in March, and that.
And let me say something about that just really quickly, and it's not in our study, but it's another metric that you can look at for new home and average home purchase prices. If, again, just for round numbers, say our median household income is, median household income in Ontario County is about $70,000. If you have an average home price that's about 3 times that, you have a good, strong market, but it's not an overburdened market. When telling you, or our statistics tell us that the average new home price is what, Ryan? 330,000.
330,000.
When you get up to 4 and 5 times the median household income, you have a huge problem. You have an overstressed market. There's more people looking than there is supply in the system. And the price is way out of whack in alignment with what people can afford.
That drives that's just for new home builds, the 330 number, but that drives the number of just average home sales around that 235, around $250,000. When we did the DRI presentation, one thing that we leaned into was information from the study. About half of the people that responded out of the near 1,100 that responded to the survey, and so these are county residents that were renters looking to own, or people that were looking to
Relocate
somewhere in the county.
Yep.
About 50% of them said town or city of Canandaigua. So when I say this, town and city. So we didn't differentiate. So people want to live in Canandaigua. Speaking to Superintendent Farr over the last decade, I think the number was a loss of about 700 kids in district. And the week that we did that presentation, I just quick looked on Zillow to see what the home sale looked like for town and city of Canandaigua. I think there were $250,000 or more. So if people want to live here, they can. There isn't rental available according to the study, and the purchase of a $250,000 house isn't a reality for a lot of families. So from my department's perspective, this becomes an economic development issue because we can't supply the workers for our employers.
Stop right there just for a second, because what the demographics tell us at the same time is that we do a horrible job over the last 30 years of holding on to our 20 and 30-year-olds.
That's right.
They go off to college, they don't come back.
Biggest growth segment for the next 20 years by far. I mean, it's not close. It is 65 and above. That's countywide.
So what happens is that who can afford those prices are people that are older, that are looking to relocate into the community, and usually it's post having kids. And that's why you're seeing all the school district populations, except for Victor, crash. I mean, there's not a school district except for Victor whose population is up over the last 10 years. They're all Gore Middlesex, Marcus Whitman has a campus that can handle 22 to 2,400 kids. They're under 1,200. In the
high water market.
Yeah.
Was in the mid-90s to the tune of a new building, which within a decade we emptied and started to rent to BOCES. Now it's been a great relationship with Wayne County Lakes BOCES to be able to house there. We're centrally located, it works for the district, this provides predictable income for the school district. However, we didn't stop there. We continue to lose students, and with state ed, you're going to get to a critical mass where you can't tax your residents enough to keep up, because state ed it's based on butts and seats. That's what they're done with it.
But back to Ryan's point, it's the 20 and 30-year-olds that we're missing, and it's those people that we're looking for to get them involved in the community. And to Ryan's point, those are the workers that we need. You know, we have businesses that are, dying for people, and there's
Some of the largest employers in the county are, a pitching wedge from this building. A good pitching. But
last year we talked to Doug and I went over and talked to the guys managing Pactiv.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they're busing people.
Yeah.
Because there aren't enough people here, and that was when they were handing out $5,000 signing bonus. You know, so.
They're hardly the only one.
Do you compare Canandaigua, Tommy, and Victor? I mean, Victor is not, school's not imploding like we are here.
No.
What is it about Victor? Is it just that proximity to Rochester, Monroe County?
Yeah, but there's a lot of
I mean,
amenities.
it comes up, but what about 20 and 30-year-olds? Are they staying there? in Victor,
No, it's
or
just,
the same situation.
it's not nearly as pronounced as it is here, and a lot of the growth is also in Farmington within the Victor School District. And you know, Victor and Farmington, it's kind of interesting. And Canandaigua to an extent, town more than the city. Everybody thinks that, oh, they're very successful communities, are financially well off, they've got growth. Gee, we want to be like them. Well, you look at the development that has occurred over the last 20 years, and those are the same communities that have had more multifamily developments than any other municipality in the county. So comparatively, you know, with the apartment complexes and things that you have in Farmington, in Victor, you know, Victor is number one in the county in terms of apartment complexes. Everybody thinks about, you know, the big $4,000 or 4,000 square feet, or, you know, the former Golisano house with, 8,000. But the reality is they've got a lot of apartments in the complexes, and they're, they can hold on to their 20-year-olds a little bit better than by comparison than the rest of the county. And it's, that move from Monroe County, our statistics were less bonded than we were 40 years ago to people living in Ontario County, working in Monroe County, but it's still a significant percentage. And it's in that corridor.
The apartments, so people are renting
Of course.
versus
Yep. So
ownership. So, I
right.
mean,
So you want to get them to transition, right? So
there's an interesting article.
it's wealthier people that
Well,
are able to make that move from Monroe County, yeah.
there's an article in the real estate section of the PNC over the weekend talking about the move from condominiums to apartments, that for developers it's much cheaper to build and obtain financing for building apartment complexes rather than condominiums. And condominiums frequently are purchased by younger people because the price point is lower.
Yeah, you're trying to start building your wealth, yeah.
But from a
Your equity.
development standpoint, apartment rentals are a much more secure form of income for the developer than the condominium.
Yep.
Qualifications and everything to buy versus here's a check for next month's rent. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts in that.
So one of the things that we found, and Ryan's probably got the exact statistics, but the numbers, exact numbers really aren't that important. What's important is what we found in terms of occupancy rates, right? A very healthy, robust rental market is one that has 5% vacancies. So there's enough room for you to decide that, well, I want a bigger place or I want a smaller place, and there's enough inventory out there. I can look for a month or two and find one. Well, right now we're there's sections of the county where the occupancy rate is 100%. There's, this part of the county, it's like what? 3?
There is not any place, any submarket in the county that approaches the
5.
vacancy of 5%. I think the high water is 3.5, which
Yep.
would be. I think that's the Geneva submarket, town and city of Geneva, Seneca, and Gorham, that area, for this submarket, which would be Victor, Farmington, town and city, Canandaigua, it's 0.
You can look at Facebook,
Canandaigua
Canandaigua Chronicles thing on Facebook. I don't think there's a day that goes by there isn't somebody that said, I'm in desperate need of an apartment, $1,000, whatever the number is. I mean, those numbers vary from, the low end where they're never gonna find anything to, fairly significant amount of money they're able to pay, but there's nothing there.
Oh,
It's the same thing on the Bristol pages, the Honeyway pages, because I'm on those too, because I live over that way. You're right, almost every single day.
Around this time last year, when the governor put out her housing plan for everything that it wasn't, and there was a lot. The one nice slide that was in that presentation was of the housing cycle, was what they referred to it as, and Tom and I jumped all over it because that cycle showed how many locks we had in Ontario County. You didn't have rentals available for, the 20 or 30 something looking to move out. You didn't have a condo type situation for the 30 something looking to move out of their first rental. There was no house, first time home buyer house to get into, and seniors couldn't move either. So we are just locked up across the entire site. So we have,
Let's say it's really plain English, which is right now, the inventory we have of larger homes is not, it is because of all this lack of vacancy, if you will, it has stopped the whole system up. And with the larger homes, we have a lot of the inventory, it's not serving our own residents, it's serving people of wealth that want to move in here. And there's nothing particularly horribly wrong with that, except that it's the rest of the population that are never going to afford a 4,000 square foot home, got nowhere to go.
and the developers were very
But
honest.
to that point, I have to ask the question. You talk about the price of the home.
Yeah.
And the cost of the home. Do you think it's any more cost effective to build a home in Florida or Texas than it is to build a home in Canada?
It's an interesting question.
But yet, young people are flocking to Florida and young people are flocking to Texas. And their state of their housing is no different than the state of our housing
Sure.
in terms of construction costs.
Construction costs, maybe marginally lower.
Where?
Down south.
But I beg to differ. I lived down there and was in the construction industry down there for 5 years. And I gotta tell you, the cost of construction there is not any lower. In fact, I could make the argument that it's probably higher than it is here in New York. So to me,
We're going through an equilibrium adjustment right now, is, this part of the country, this part of the state lag behind in housing values, frankly, for decades.
absolutely. I was just gonna bring that up.
Yep.
I mean, I
And
look at
now,
realtor.com all the time. And they say upstate, well, now let me rephrase that. Western New York is one of the more cost affordable places to live
in central New York,
because of the price of housing.
Yep.
They claim that the price of housing is less in Western New York than it is in basically any other state in the country.
So part of the problem is what's going on with that adjustment over the last, certainly accelerated. And Ryan can probably look up the statistics, but this is what you need to walk away with. Submarket 2, we are here. We're 1.
Yep.
Okay. Submarket 1. Yep. Prices have accelerated dramatically here since 2017.
Sorry, you were right, for two.
We're 2. Every other market. All right, the median per household price or the average household price is highest in this submarket than any other submarket. Whether it's new or existing. But what's gone on in the rest of the county, every other area is actually accelerating faster and catching up. So people aren't just looking and pushing the demand into this submarket, because we always think Victor, Farmington, Canandaigua, those other submarkets are seeing it because people are going, can't afford to live there. I'm gonna live in Gorham. I'm gonna live in Naples. And even the existing housing prices are going. And again, accelerating, I think, in. Is it 4 that's, Phelps and, Geneva and Seneca and Gorham? That one actually accelerated at a faster percentage than any other one in the county. Catching up, I mean, they went from, average home price, so new or existing, went from, like 140 something to almost 190,000 in 5 years.
But that's
and-
comparable
and-
to what has happened all over the country.
I'm telling you, the market is everything is pushing up, and it's catching up. So in those submarkets, so from a individual perception, they're saying, oh my gosh, I'm an older person. I got this, 2,200 square foot house. The kids are out of the house. We don't really need this much anymore. I can sell my house for this one. I can't find a smaller one that I want. So I'll have somebody build one for me. And given the new house construction, why would I pay more than I can sell my house for 800 square feet less than I had before? It makes no sense to me. So we're seeing the seniors say they want to stay in their existing house, or I'm gonna stay in my existing house, even though it doesn't meet my needs. It needs major renovations and we jam the system up.
And the developers were honest about it too. When we met with them, they, to their credit, they said, it doesn't make a lot of sense for us to look to develop anything outside of what would be developed for the top 10 to 15% of the market. So it's just because of
People
the
can't
cost.
afford it.
And when they talk about cost, it was more than just the house itself. It was all the civil engineering part of it, sidewalks, roads, streetlights. That's all passed on to end user, because there isn't a developer alive that's going to do it. It'd be
That all
nice.
It's all my infrastructure costs, and what's one of the few ways you can reduce infrastructure costs is to spread it out over more units.
Mhm.
So, that's one of the conclusions and recommendations is, not saying where, not, leaving that to the municipalities to really think about, but we need to find more home styles, and increase our density and decrease our lot size. And, and you wouldn't put a 2,000 square foot house on a small lot, right? I mean, you're looking, those things all have to work together.
Well, I certainly agree with you that zoning and lot size and housing size, if it is developer friendly, certainly can help drive this issue to a positive conclusion. And I think that we're all aware of that here in this room. And we've been trying to discuss that issue through the ordinance legislation, I guess I would call it. And that's why we asked you here, because to me, or to us, we weren't sure whether 1,100 square foot was the right answer. And I mean, I begs the question for me, why do we legislate size at all as far as minimums?
Do you have any, I mean, I'll just put this out there for you to think about. In my career, looking at zoning ordinances all over the county, usually those standards are based on one and sometimes both of these things. Back 20 years ago, cost of services analysis were really all in rage, the rage, and people looked at, oh, how much value did a single family home really have to be able to generate enough tax income to support the services that it demanded. And you saw a lot of, just about every municipality either did their own or considered those. And so, no, we need $300,000 houses because, single family residential doesn't pay its own way. Industrial does, commercial's kind of a break even, but it's not bad. Farms are great because, cows don't go to school, that whole thing. But, we gotta, have these bigger homes to do that. So you start seeing those minimums in there. And it's my opinion, extremely short-sighted thinking.
Kind of. I'm not gonna argue against that, but.
Yeah.
For me to believe that people in the town of Canandaigua, when they're developing zoning code, said we want lots this size, went through that kind of analysis. Having known some of those people, I don't know that they're capable of that kind of analysis. We've got to,
People hired out.
That's what drove it.
Yeah. Cornell did a lot of them. They did one countywide. They did, 20 some years ago.
There's a
More.
couple
And then,
questions though I've got about the ordinance itself.
well, hold on,
Before we move on.
hold on. The other thing,
That's something Tom just said.
the other thing that I see a lot of is everybody was scared to death of the requirements that came down from the federal government and then in the state that you have to treat manufactured homes as the same as any other site constructed home. So the way you do that and regulate it is you put a minimum square footage on your home that they can't meet.
I wouldn't argue against that one. I mean, that's reality.
Yeah.
So you mentioned, you think that measuring the size of the home and the taxes generated by the size of that home versus the cost of the services was short-sighted. Why do you believe that?
I think we're living the effect of that. Is you have new homes that are overly large, you have, and and this is not mine, I can't even remember where I got it from. But when communities are starting out to update their comprehensive plans, one of the things that I like to ask them is, so does your zoning ordinance allow, 250, 300, 400 square foot apartments? Oh, no, they've got to be a minimum 650 square feet or 700 or, la-di-da-di-da. I said, well, how many people here have ever lived in a 400 square foot apartment? Universally, you'll see at the least close to 50%. Usually it's more like 70%. Oh yeah, I lived in a dorm. I didn't go to a dorm. I lived in an apartment. Oh, when I first got out of college, I did, this apartment, that apartment. Most people have lived there. I said, so you really wonder why you have no young people in your community anymore and they're all moving away? Because you don't even allow that in your zoning. You have to have accommodation. It's the same way with that cost of services analysis being short-sighted. From a planner's point of view, having every home in a development the same value or the same minimum doesn't it's not good social engineering, if you will. People ought not to be segregated by wealth and income. The best communities are those that, and more vital, that have a mix of housing styles and forms. And sure, you know, Ryan's gonna afford and he's gonna, you know, have a better house than I am, or, you know, or blah, blah, blah. That's life. But, you know, maybe the job I have isn't as valued, but it doesn't mean it's not as necessary. And you need that mix in a community. So setting a minimum that is ridiculously high or doesn't allow flexibility, just it's very short-sighted.
Because it's just like any other analysis, it's a snapshot in time. I mean, that analysis when it's done was probably pretty good for the day. But just like, and I'm done it at 9 years on the school board at Mid Lakes, we had stuff on the books that we had last year, and we'll just keep it there because, you know,
Inertia.
it seemed good, right? You know, we did it with kids being able to go play sports at a neighboring district. We didn't have it at, we never allowed for it. Nobody ever asked for it either. But then as soon as somebody did, we're like, well, we don't do that. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Why don't we do it? Kid wants to go run track indoor. And so now more and more people are doing that. You know, 1,100 square foot. The question I asked is, do you know when that was ordinance? You know, probably made sense.
We couldn't even find find it. We didn't even know. And then Sarah went into the ordinances and ended up finding that it was in fact 1,100 square feet.
And I think you said, one of the things you said was it doesn't make sense to put a number on it at all. I think the market will put the number on it.
Absolutely. I concur with that.
I don't think there's not a developer that's going to make, they're gonna put together a 250 square foot anything. It's not gonna be worth their time to build it.
So, and that's I
There you
lean
go.
towards that philosophy. Let the open market dictate where the demand is. And if the demand is for 1,000 square foot homes, so be it.
Yeah.
That's what, you know, as opposed to trying to legislate what we believe is best. The marketplace will take care of itself if we let it.
Yep, and I think, you know, that'll open up other things to look at, of course, because once you take that restriction away, you've got to think about how it, you know.
The unintended consequences.
You don't have that problem.
Things, right?
You don't have this problem here in this submarket, but others do. You do have a number of relatively new multifamily developments, right? Apartment complexes in your community. And, you know, trying to get some of the other submarkets to understand that that's not a bad thing. You know, getting over the attitude, oh, we don't want any more of those lower income people moving our community. And it's like, you understand, that's your kids, that's your neighbors' kids, that's your you know, your relatives' kids. It's your own people. What are you talking about? Those people moving into your community. And it also, in a free market, develops competition. Again, you don't have, City of Canandaigua has some of this, but so much of our inventory of apartments in the county is older homes that have been divided up into 3 or more units, right? And there is no competition out there in those often very inefficient, energy inefficient apartments to drive them to be upgraded. And yet the rental prices are competitive with the other submarkets. So people are paying a lot, they're paying plus utilities. So we're locking those people into energy inefficient units that is just perpetuating their existence in poverty, or said differently, not generating the excess disposable income that we'd like to see to enhance the rest of the economy. You know, it's a horrible cycle. So you need those apartment complexes to put some competition on the rest of the inventory that's out there.
You got it. You should be applauded to have this conversation, because it's the first municipality that has called us and said, hey, we want to look at our zoning and planning because we think there might be an issue. Most of them are still interested in hearing about
The data.
Right, and what do we do next? You guys are
Yep.
already looking at the what do we do next?
Yep.
And this comes on the heels of a conversation I had on Friday with Habitat for Humanity, who has been forever doing onesie twosies when they find a lot. And they want to get into, I think they piloted this program in Monroe County, to find larger lots and do multiple single family houses. Now, in order to do that, they're gonna have to find a place that one will take them into, it's not gonna be 2,200 square foot houses. That's not what they do. Is 1,100 the right number for something like that? I don't know, but I do know that according to what our own residents are saying, if Habitat could find a lot here, the town of Canandaigua would fill it. And those are our residents, our employees, for our employers, and that's
Yeah. Our own
that's the
people.
balance that we need to find.
John, can I say something?
Oh, please do, Kurt.
So, in 2013, my numbers may be off a little bit. I was a partner with the Marco Group to build the Creekview Apartments. And I don't know what the end number was, the first phase, but I think it was somewhere between 96 and 110 or somewhere in that range. And for the last 9 years, they've applied to continue to get that support. But Canandaigua's numbers are too strong to get the support. You're going against Ithaca, you're going against Canastillo, you're going against different places. So I think it's even deeper than this is pretty deep issues, right? Sure. And so we have capacity, I believe, I can't remember the exact number was, I think it was 364 apartments in that location. And so it's been a stalling effort on behalf of the state, again, to support things because they have limited dollars. And what I hear is that, yeah, they're gonna develop around train stations and other things like that where it relates to down in the city area. But it's gotta be thought through again at the state level a little bit more than it is right now.
Yeah, we're all,
Because if we're all having this problem.
Yeah.
And we can't even build now without the support of the state of New York. But they promised to us when we originally did the contract relationship with them. And, you know, we've been every year wave at it and say, okay, it's this or it's that.
Greg, was those income
Income driven,
restricted?
right, absolutely.
Yep.
I think Edgemere just lost its funding.
Yeah, we're all waiting to hear what the governor comes up with,
Comes up with.
or
Yeah,
she,
she
you
did
know,
put it, you know,
she's gonna do something
program
with
together
housing. Yeah.
Last year, but it didn't get
Yeah.
passed. We'll be
Nope.
interested what she.
There's some problems with it, but you know.
Right.
We'll see what this year's proposal is.
Some of that is also, my own belief is that one of the reasons, younger people leave this area is because jobs aren't here. The professional jobs aren't here. You're not gonna have that kind of development in the state. Because the state is not business friendly. They're government friendly to certain
Each other, right?
people, but
Yeah.
not to everyone, so. You gotta have the jobs. I mean, our town is gonna become really strictly residential. We have some open property that's been discussed in here, it's been discussed at every committee that we have over the years. But you're not gonna attract industry here. We have a few industries and hopefully they stay. But it's gonna be residential, and trying to get that balance of the right residential. Is one of the, John outlined earlier, is one of the functions of this group that. You know, we have the uptown area that's gonna start developing. I don't know, Sarah, maybe you talk a little bit about the. Meetings that have been held with Jeff Cook and
We-
company that.
Anticipate
happen
them
up there?
coming to the town board with an incentive zoning proposal early in first quarter, I think, for housing,
So Ryan,
a mix.
I'm sorry. You're done?
Yeah,
I'm sorry. So do you really share that view that we don't have jobs?
No, we do,
High
but
paying jobs.
we're continuing to grow them. It's. A lot of them are not what you would have traditionally thought would have been a high paying job. I think some of them are more, but some of the higher paying jobs now that are coming are a lot more hands-on than sitting in an office. We do struggle to attract some businesses because of our lack of sites countywide, which is something that my department's going to start to address this year. I think we talked about it at the LDC meetings a couple different times, right? We've got 50 some odd sites that are 5 acres and above across the entire county, and we're not really sure to what level they're shovel ready. So we have to address that, and we're going to.
Oh, we have an idea. We just,
gotta
how
figure out where-
how we push them farther on that spectrum.
And we started to talk to GRE about that because site selection has changed pretty quickly. The list of things that site selectors are asking has grown over the past 18 months. I mean, we're not talking, this is something that, you know, they used to ask this a decade ago, now they ask this. It's changing all the time. So we're going to try to build our site selection engine. So site selectors can look at it on our website and say, they're just check boxes. Okay, they've got all the questions answered. So now we know we can look. Canandaigua has several good sites that we keep putting up to GRE or through our site selectors, but it's missing information. And we don't know about this. We'll just throw it off because somebody down south or out west or, you know, in Syracuse is going to have that answer, and site selectors are lazy. You know, if you can present the information to them in a way that they can digest it, then they will come and take a look. Because we can sell the area isn't a problem at all. We just have to sell the sites.
Here's the anecdotal story I'll share, and we hear this over and over again, and I lived it with both of my kids. You know, they were both very good in school, you know, got masters. Came back home after college, both of them had jobs immediately. You know, the older daughter had a job before she even finished college. The younger one was got a degree in occupational therapy. You know, so she had to go through a certification and a licensing. So she got her license one day, had 2 interviews by the close of the next day, and by the afternoon was engaged in a bidding war between who was going to pay her more. You know, how times have changed. Getting a job, professional, not an issue. Both within Ontario County. Trying to find a place to live. You know, finally, the older daughter scooted and moved to Philadelphia. The younger one took her 2 years to find an apartment, finally in a complex in Geneva. And she lived there a couple years before she moved to Pennsylvania. It was the same thing, you know, this is a crappy apartment. It's, you know, I'm paying through the nose. I get, you know, my company will move me down here. They'll pay me to move. And I can go to, you know, all places, Allentown, PA area, and the market is not nearly as saturated there as it is here. I can get a much better apartment for what I'm paying here. Goodbye.
Yeah,
I
John.
think there are a lot of reasons why people move. It's not strictly. If you're in the medical community, you get a job any place here, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
My kid's a doctor, you know, it's sure. Occupational therapy, old people moving in here, you got, you know, you can name your price.
She could work anywhere.
I mean, but when you look at.
But we heard that same story over and over again from people.
My career is in electronics industry. Getting people like that to invest here is, God bless you, I hope you're successful, but
So just, I mean.
kind of doubt it.
It's tough to, like Tom and I have said, it's difficult to hold on to the 20 somethings because of a lot of that reason is the housing part of it though. I mean, when I started this job, before I came on just not quite 2 years ago, as a journeyman wireman, I was making $36 an hour plus benefit. My wife worked in healthcare administration, $20 an hour. We bought our house in Phelps for $137,000. That was 8 years ago this month. There is not a house in Phelps for $137,000. We would not be able to afford to live in Phelps. And I've lived there for my entire life. We can't afford to live there. Quite honestly, making the job I have now, which pays me a little more than what I was as a journeyman wireman. Couldn't find a house in Phelps.
In
And
Phelps.
I'm 47 years old, who, had a stable job. My wife had a stable job. My daughter at 21, almost 22, the amount of just dejection for that age group, because they're screwed. I mean, they don't have a place to go. I mean, she couldn't find a place to rent in Ontario County if she tried. There isn't one. And at some point in time, and many of her friends have done this, it's been.
Sooner or later,
I
I'm
don't
gonna
know
move
what
out of
the-
Ryan's basement, right?
Yeah,
Or your
they're gonna
whole
just go
bedroom
down
at
south.
home, right?
Is it cheaper down there? Probably not. Is there more places to live down there? Maybe, maybe not, but. You just, after 22 years of living in the Finger Lakes and you can't find any place, you can't get out of mom and dad's house. I'll try North Carolina and see what happens. Maybe they come back, but the numbers would suggest they don't. And that's a real problem for our businesses and for all of us. And they'll start costing money. That's why the cost of services conversation is a fascinating one that has to be continual.
It's a great analysis for saying why you don't need all residential in your community. However, it's not the end all and beat all for making a decision about the array of housing types and values you need in your community. You should need them all.
No, that's why this uptown area,
Yeah.
Jeff Cook, the guy that you guys must have talked to him by now.
Yep.
What he's proposing, like 400 or 500 units all together, a mix.
Yeah.
Apartments, single family homes, but with the form-based code that we adopted in that area, we're gonna have to do something there because the lot sizes that he's proposing are smaller than what that code allows for, so. He probably will use the incentive zoning,
But the starting prices on those homes are between $300,000 and $400,000.
that's what I was gonna say.
And the monthly rent on the
Even with
apartments
that,
was like
it's
2,000 and up.
Yeah.
I asked him what he was expecting for that,
What did he say, sir?
over 2,000 a month on the
Your
apartment.
kids your daughter's not moving out of her bedroom into that one of those.
Very
rental
used to
units.
it, right?
Places in Farmington are too. I mean, we went there back over the summer, September, I guess, to tour one of the developments there, and the houses that were being built were gonna have a price of about $450,000-$500,000, and the rental townhouses one street over, it's $2,500 a month, plus utility. Uptown. But that's why I'm excited about the habitat idea, because
If I can get
Well,
back,
that is, yeah, but John talks about the free market. That's the free market. That's what's happening. So how do you can build smaller units, but are those smaller units actually going to be a much more reasonable price point, or are they? People that own them are gonna get what they get. I mean, that's
I
just,
don't think that everyone will rush to build smaller. I just don't think that's
No,
real.
probably
But
not.
if it's allowed, some may.
that, yeah,
They'll find
Well,
somebody
that's fine.
to buy
you
it.
should
I
do
know
that.
one thing that we've done through the IDA just very recently, was introduced a project in Victor for senior housing. It's gonna be 112 units for 65 and above. The hope, of course, is that we'll capture our local seniors to live there, freeing up the houses that they live in now, which starts to unstick the cycle a little bit. Those houses that they free up are probably gonna be pretty pricey, but I look at my neighbors in Phelps and across the street is 92 and 91, 89, 78, 88. They're all the same size as my house. Mr. Spinks has an immaculate yard, and he tells me all the time, I wish there was a place to move to 25 years ago, because I'd have been out of here. Love my house, love my yard, love my neighborhood, but his choices back then were either the spa apartments, which was not a non-starter for him, or Ashton Place, which was too expensive. There was no place for him, Mrs. Spinks, to go to, so they just stayed in their house. And that would have been one of those $137,000 houses that would have been available years ago. It wasn't. Now I mean, it
Well,
would be $200,000.
Terry, I got
But
two
their
comments.
prices aren't gonna drop on those places though, so I mean. If you create an apartment for that guy to move into, that house is gonna sell for whatever the market will bear.
No, yeah, that's right, but we're gonna have to unstick it at some point in time in the hopes that, well, you'll find that balance, because wages are going up a little bit too, which is nice. But we have two issues now, and it's a chicken and egg situation, is it affordability or availability? The study and our residents said both,
Mhm.
and you figure that the affordability issue was driven because there is no availability.
Yeah, that is driving there.
So
Right,
two
Bob.
comments
I can
about,
put whatever price I want on my house, because if you wanna live in Phelps bad enough, you're gonna have to pay it. There's only 400 places to choose.
The number that sticks in this head right here is 32 grand. That's what I paid for a house 50 years ago. I moved to Buffalo Street when I first came here. I measure everything.
bought my house in Gorham for 43. It was 40 years ago. Huh?
The numbers these days, if you're older like Chuck, you know, those are the things. that stick.
I hear you, Pop.
So I have two comments for you to consider. One, certainly within the municipalities purview. You can require a minimum number of units to be and define it in your own way. What's affordable? I don't really care, in doing 100 units, 5 of them have to be affordable, whatever that means in your parlance. You as a developer, you have to, you work with us and figure that out. Does it mean it's 1,100 square feet? It's a smaller house in that development. It's a X, rent supported units, income restricted, whatever it is. You can do that. Again, my way of thinking, you read anything that requiring those types of mixes makes for a better community and a better neighborhood. It just works better, He also talked about the project coming in the apartment complex and north of the city, and to be able to get to the minimum required, or to get to what he's proposing for the unit sizes, he's got to go through an incentive zoning process. Why?
Why?
Yeah, why? I mean, I understand why in your ordinance. Why would you? What do we hear over and over again from the development community? Just tell us what you want. Tell us what the rules are. The more you string them out the process, the longer he's going to have a carrying cost, the more expense you're adding to his development.
So you're saying we should get rid of our code?
Figure out what you want and put it in there. If you want flexibility, you adopted the form-based code. Let the form-based code and the market drive the blessed thing. Why put a developer through that process?
Code that we have in place, he can't do that. That's the problem.
So
That's
fix
the
it.
That's
He's one developer. One developer.
Exactly.
One of the
So
reasons.
everyone that wants to come in and have a mix of units, they got to go through some convoluted process to get there.
Not sure it's convoluted, but it is a
You
problem.
You tell me it's not adding time to his development. It's not, he's doing it at risk. I'm gonna come in the door with this thing that doesn't meet your zoning, and we're gonna have to do another process. Even where in your or in the example where we said, hey, we want a minimum number of affordable units. You can't do that without, what's the benefit to the community? You gotta provide something offset to qualify for incentive zoning. My way of thinking, that's nuts.
That's what the developer said to us in the.
Yeah, I kind of lean towards what you're saying also. I mean, and to your point, Dave, you said there's only one developer, but that's the only developer that's willing to take the risk
There you go.
that they can go and modify the zoning to meet their needs. Right? So the zoning in and of itself, when a person goes to look at that property, And I mean, we just had this conversation with Andy Griffith about this property out on New Michigan. So they're looking at it and they're saying, okay, the minimum zoning is X. And this holds true with any zoning area we're talking about. Thus, the minimum zoning is X. What do I have to build in X to be able to make a profit? And most of them will say, you know what, it doesn't work, and they walk away from the deal. Now, this is one developer in Uptown that's willing to take that risk. He bought that piece of property saying, I think I can get the zoning modified a little bit or tweaked a little bit so that it meets my needs.
But he didn't go in with that. He went with a whole different plan. He reassessed that plan and then he came back and said, I can't do that plan. I can do this plan. What do you guys think?
Right.
I think that's a healthy process. Does it take another month? Maybe. Does it take 2 months? Maybe. But
Does it
that,
take 6 months? Does it take a year?
I'll bet it won't take 6 months though. I bet it won't.
Only if we allow a modification to the zoning.
Right. I agree with that.
So it's incumbent on us to modify the zoning to meet their needs. And what I hear Tom saying is, the zoning ought to be.
Take
modified
the
ahead of time.
lesson and fix
So
your
that-
zoning, because it's not working.
Yeah. And to your point, if the zoning is modified such that there's more than one developer looking at it,
It's competition.
it's competition. And competition drives numbers down.
Sure does.
No, what I hear Tom saying is we don't need a zoning code. That's what I hear.
No, I'm not saying that at
Well,
all.
what should the number be then? Lot size?
It depends. Yeah, I don't think one size ever fits all.
But we don't need any numbers to put on it then.
Um,
What you're saying.
So if you're concerned with the traditional, for example, let's just put it right out there, a single wide mobile home showing up in your community, then you have other avenues to address that. Talk about the appearance of a full masonry foundation, talk about roof pitch, talk about, all those things are easy fixes. And if, you know, if that manufacturing infrastructure can meet it, what the hell do you care?
Well, one of the things that I care about is what the people and residents of our town want.
There's a
That has to
huge
be
problem.
considered too.
And one of the
You can't
reasons,
ignore that, you know,
you're right, and
not if you wanna hold office.
one of the reasons we're gonna go around and do a whole series of presentations is we have to get people to think differently, and there has to be an education process, and yet you have to understand what it is these rules are doing to our community, right? Again, you know, Ryan's had some experience, I've had some experience. You know, typically a third of the people will come in, rah, let's get these changes made. A third of the people are gonna be where you are, and those are the ones that usually are aggravated and come out with the pitchforks at the town
No, I've
meetings,
never-
right? And you know, we don't want that type of development in our neighborhood or that income level, and we don't want those people here. And then there's a third of them that really that you can deal with and you know, want to know more before they make their decisions. And
I think the important
This,
part is at the end of the day, because your point is a very valid one, but
extremely,
and you have to ask the question of what's your residents want? And I think what Tom and I and what the steering committee and what the housing study shows us is that you're actually trying to deliver what your residents want. Some of them may not want it, but some of them desperately need it.
so the whole public outreach is, and the reason we think we're committed to doing it is that I think board members, local government needs to hear both sides. And usually the only people you're gonna hear from are the people that are aggravated.
Both sides.
you mentioned a point earlier.
Both sides,
Ryan,
you're gonna hear.
If you're lucky, you get both sides.
that the county is going to work on identifying buildable sites for business. That's what I heard.
Yeah, and you'll catch.
I'll just say commercial. So my question is, and in particularly the town of Canandaigua and relative to Terry's point that our town is gonna grow through residential development as opposed to commercial or industrial development. And I agree with Terry completely on that. Is the county expecting to or going to be doing any studies of potentially residential developable properties? And come back to the municipalities and say, potentially, this is a developable residential site. And you might want to look at your zoning relative to that particular area.
So it's an excellent question, and one, I can't.
I can answer that.
We don't, we're working through what the next steps will be.
Yeah.
When my department does the commercial, developable list and strengthen that, you're gonna find residential development there also, because some of the sites could go either way. And I think because of the study and because these conversations continue to happen, a lot of our residential developers know that Ontario County Government Business, which is something that outside of Farmington and $500,000 houses 2 years ago, nobody knew. They know now, because we have to address the issue. So I think, yes, eventually you will see both. One of the consequences of my department doing our work now, you'll find some answers along the way, but we have a lot of work left to do. I mean,
So I say this.
So
this conversation-
before you go farther,
I'm not going further. I'm staying on this here.
Okay.
But. So the feedback I've heard here in this room, as well as what the feedback I've heard relative to the development of Uptown. And you made the point, we're open for business. So what I've heard from the developer is. They want to do the project because they believe the community wants it and needs it. Yeah. And that they're hearing that message loud and clear. And. Like you just said, up until 2 years ago, that message might not have been being conveyed properly or at all. And I think we need to get more of that message out. And. You know, maybe they heard it now and it's, you know, in the last 2 years they've heard it, but I think we need to really drill home that message and let people know. We're open to building residential properties here in this. I think in terms of Canandaigua, you think in terms of the county, but I know in Canandaigua, we want residential development. So we think that's gonna drive our community.
one of the things that came out of this, as soon as, I mean, almost as soon as the board, voted to accept this study. Within the next week, I had a call from the Victor Senior Housing Development, the developer that was looking to do that. And they had their application filled out, presented to the IDA, and were given their incentives December meeting. So within 3 months, 4 months, it went from no talk of senior housing development on School Street in Victor to they've gone through the village to get their incentives through that. They've worked out any of the issues they had through the village government, got all their approvals, and now have a pretty aggressive incentive to build it because we need it. So I think you're right. People are going to start to take notice. We will continue to build the list for both commercial and residential developable sites. We have to. I mean, it's something we have to do.
What are the costs of those units? You know what the cost of those units are gonna be coming in?
I have it. I don't off the top of my head remember it. It's I mean, they asked us if they did senior housing, would they be able to just do senior housing and not have an affordability piece, which is usually something that the IDA does. We had to consider that. And because of the study, and we realized that we're fighting on multiple fronts here, right? We need affordable housing, we need senior housing, we need, somewhere workforce housing.
We need housing.
Rentals.
We need housing.
The IDA had that conversation, decided to deviate from the normal tax exempt policy and make it okay for them just to focus on senior housing. So there is not an affordability piece to it.
Are those rental or individual ownership?
They'll be rental.
Rental.
Yeah.
So Ryan, do you count that as commercial then?
That
I
site
mean,
that they're building
residential
on,
commercial, is that? I mean, if somebody has a business or,
Fair enough.
So they,
Yeah, the site that they're gonna
line
line
up,
up is a commercial site.
you know,
They're gonna rip down the building and build new, and.
Mhm.
You know, the IDA takes some lumps. Because that's what IDAs do, but for the town of Victor and for the county as a whole. One, we're getting the housing that's needed to serve a section of the population that we desperately need to serve. But right now, as it sits, that parcel, I think total tax bill. That's local, school, county was about $27,000 per year. Year one after certificate of occupancy, they're gonna pay $112,000 on their payment in lieu of. So, I mean, that's a win. For us. And like I said earlier, the hope is. Not only do we get those filled, but it also empties some of the houses around it to help fill them. We get to keep their money and hopefully bring in new. So we're taking a different approach. One of the things that we're doing this year on top of, you know, finding houses that are developable sites is we're looking at our tax exempt policy to. Make it. So we can deal with residential development of some sort. We're not gonna do all of it, obviously, we can't. But we also want to update our commercial. UTEP. And we have to address solar as well, because. A one size fits all approach, which is what we've had over the past, since our last update, which was 2017 or 18,
Mhm.
it's been. This is the tax exempt policy, and if you're building houses or a commercial. Manufacturing building or a solar development, this is what you got, and it doesn't work.
so commercial is not just a business, McDonald's, for example, or something like that. I mean, it does include housing.
Uptown,
Residential, it's a component of.
Uptown Canandaigua is a perfect example of that. You've got some sites up in Uptown that. They're trying to decide whether or not they want to market it for commercial development or for residential, because. How much more money are they gonna make from one or the other, right? So those sites exist, and if somebody comes in and wants to purchase it and the pipes in the ground and they can start developing it. They're gonna do it because there's gonna be money to be made there.
So at the county
It's a
level,
flexibility too. I mean, if they can change it from commercial, that's where the market is, so residential, at first floor especially, I know they're talking about. You know, do I put a commercial operation in there, or do the interest is greater, we put apartments in.
So tomorrow morning, our EDC, because this is a team sport. The IDA is looking at the tax exempt policy tomorrow morning. The EDC is going to start to look into what incentives and through our revolving loan fund, we can start to offer for just that. For some more Main Street development. We've got not just in Canandaigua, but we've got places that could be filled first floor or something on Main Street and upper floor housing to free up some rental spots. And if we can offer an aggressive loan package to allow for that, then we will. And one of the things that this study showed was that we have a great deal of zombie houses throughout the county. Something that we've never gotten involved in, but if we have contractors that are willing to purchase and need a little help getting it started to put houses back on the market, then we have to do it. Like I said at the very beginning, this is the biggest economic development hurdle that we have. I mean, we can overcome some of the infrastructure pieces. It's gonna take time and money, everything else does. But the number one thing that I hear talking to any of our businesses, this is Pactiv and everybody else too. I'd love to expand. I've got 40 open positions. Why would I put another building on if I'm just gonna add?
Is where's the
25
other-
more open positions? That doesn't
Exactly.
make any sense. I mean, GW List has 65 open positions right now. They figure it costs them about $10 million a year. We have to fill them, but there's no place to live here, so we can't keep a hourly wage earner engaged in Ontario County. We're not gonna be able to get them to go to work at Lisk or Pactiv or LSI or any of those other places. I mean, the hospitals are desperate. Nurses make a lot of money, doctors make a lot of money, but there's a lot of other people that work there.
That's right. So back to about the land use analysis, when we worked with Ryan and we did the analysis for industrial properties. We can certainly do something similar for residential and get that list, but we're gonna be very careful about that. We're not gonna come in and tell your community where you need to target, what you need to change. What you need to change, if you invite us in, we'll work with you. But, we're not gonna come and dictate, hey, your community's gotta do this. This is where it makes sense. We're not doing that.
Yeah, East Bloomfield, there was
Yeah.
50 people that came to that presentation and the fear for. Half of that crowd was the county was coming in and telling them that they had to put residential housing on that street. That's not what we're trying to do.
No.
We're just want the conversation. It was very important for Supervisor Willie to hear both sides of the argument. Those that didn't want it.
Yep.
And not all that surprisingly were people that had lived in East Bloomfield forever. Their houses bought and paid for. Why do you need more housing? Well, right next to you is your neighbor who owns a farm and I can't remember her name, but she had 5 people working for her full time. Not all that long ago, they couldn't find a place that they could continue to afford and ended up going to work somewhere else. Now her and her husband are working the farm alone. They don't have any workers. No place to live in Bloomfield. It's tough to do. And that it was important for the neighbor to hear that too. It's not the county, it's not the town, anybody's just saying, oh, we're gonna force housing on you and you're gonna take it. There's a need there.
We've had 2 farmers reach out in the last 6 months asking about building homes on their farm for their workers because they can't afford to live anywhere else. And so they're at the point where they're like, well, we're gonna build them houses. What do we need to do?
We went to, we got a $2.2 million grant out of, Office of Community Renewal, also known as Home and Community Renewal, HCR. Just for farm worker housing, and it wasn't to build anything new, it was just to upgrade. And we got more money than any other applicant in the state, because of the problems we have here in Ontario County and agriculture. People talk about rural preservation, and there's not outside of the 2 cities, there's not a comprehensive plan in this county that doesn't talk about rural atmosphere and the quality of life and preserving all of that, which is all great stuff. But as a practicalist, right, the best way to preserve your rural character is to make sure you have a good, strong agricultural community, and they're having the same problems. With workers and housing. So we're taking steps to try to help them as well.
Okay, so Sarah, what was you said when these farmers came and they said, can we build accessory dwelling units on our property? In the particular areas where they are zoned, is that acceptable?
Yeah, farmers can do that.
Farmers can do that.
It's a minimum of 5 acres, is that right?
I can't remember.
They can build up to 5 units.
On a 5-acre parcel.
Right, to your earlier point, I think one of the next steps that this group could consider, and I think you should, is to have exactly that conversation that East Bloomfield did and open it up. But you'll know what your residents are gonna hear or are gonna think in that meeting. They're not gonna be shy about it. And you will hear both sides of it. But you'll have an informed decision when you start to talk about something, because you also don't want to just throw everything out there. You can do whatever the hell you want to.
No. Where does the density belong? Where will we accept density? You've got a lot of that in your zoning code now. Again, density is one of the issues you gotta, take a fresh look at.
Where are we gonna have these meetings anyway? You said 5? County?
Oh, no, there'll probably be more than that.
Yeah, we had our first 4 to kind of unveil this thing.
Yep.
And then after the fact, municipalities started to call and ask, hey, we want to take a deep dive. We really want to hear about it. Our residents want to hear about it. So we started with East Bloomfield because they were the first ones to ask. And quite honestly, we weren't sure what to expect at the steering committee. I presented to Grove Bloomfield before, there was, 8 or 9 people sitting around a couple of folding tables, there's 50 people, so it's an important issue. Geneva wants to hear about it, Phelps wants to hear about it. I think
You could do it here.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. We're actually designing what that's gonna. The other thing we found out after the Bloomfield meeting was, holy hell, we better come up with a better plan than just, let's talk about housing. So we're coming up with how to structure that talk. I would encourage you to invite your residents and invite developers, because you'll get to hear more than just the one developer, what they would like. They'll all tell you, they were very honest.
And
during
you-
their roundtable to say, this is what costs us money and time, and that's why we're not building, or why we're only building this.
I would,
Quorum here.
I would encourage you guys to offer that as a training opportunity as well, and for your planning and zoning board members, for sure, give them credit for going. Because they'll, just like your elected officials, need to hear both sides of the argument. And
When would that be available? You said you're.
well, let's see, I've got 40 slides. My goal is to get it down by 10 more. So I was working on the presentation last week, so
I think
soon.
Steering committee is gonna meet again next week or the week after. We're trying to, one of the goals of this study was to create housing something. Committee, commission, board.
Oh, different things, yeah.
Whatever.
We have a steering committee, then a housing commission, and but we're just not gonna drop this thing. We see the county is gonna be in this for the long haul because it's such an important issue.
So we'll start to put that together, the slide presentation and how, and who and how we present it to the municipalities will get a lot cleaner because it has to.
Yep.
We should be the guinea pig.
What's that?
We should be the guinea pig.
Let us know.
I would
Okay.
say probably you too, right? I would sometime.
Oh, yeah, February,
February,
we,
March-ish, we'll be ready to roll, because we have to include the board of supervisors, once we have kind of what we think it should look like.
Yep.
I believe then the next step for the steering committee at least would be to show it to the board of supervisors, say, this is what we're thinking. Is this what you?
this is the
were
rollout.
Thinking, and then once we get that blessing.
Because part of
we're
the
ready to go.
thing, the presentation is the easy part, if you will. It's the, okay, so what's our commitment going to be in terms of, what's the support? Because like you guys, all right, we want to identify some, properties that are ripe for residential development. Well, one of my parameters, what are the resources we have available to do that? So. But part of the other recommendation is that, and it probably won't happen till mid-year, but we're gonna staff up a little bit as well. So we're gonna get somebody on board to be dedicated to move this thing forward, and I'm sure that'll grow over time, but it's that important an issue. We've never really done a lot of community development work at the county. We've strictly been economic development and the little pieces of that. We're gonna, end up being more active in that regard, and we're gonna look for partners both from private industry and from the municipalities. Hey, we're willing to work with you to do this project here. The county is going to work with a developer to do grant writing to get the infrastructure we need in that particular parcel, because we all agreed that's a target area. We'll help you, get the zoning right, get, la-di-da-di-da. But, we're gonna foray into that type of work.
Sounds like a good place to pause for a second and
Yeah, I had a quick question, Ryan, not to prolong the discussion too much. I know there is in this area, being from out of the area originally, it just seems obvious a proliferation of manufactured homes, parks. Now, is that something that could help fill the breach? And how do you classify those in your study? Do you classify as rental units, or do you have a separate category?
Hence, they're a mix of both.
Mix of both, yeah.
And there are some recommendations about mobile home parks and
There's
there
a lot of rent. I mean.
there's
Yeah.
well, let's step back. do you ever wonder why the ordinances, usually the local laws of zoning are written the way they are? You know, when you have small lot sizes for a mobile home, you don't allow in your zoning, they have to be owned in common and they end up being lot rentals, right? But you see them all being snapped up and bought by larger conglomerates now, because
Mhm.
guess what? They make money. The reason they make money is they're high density. They got water, sewer, roads, even sidewalk infrastructure that's spread out. Just like we were talking, a bunch of units, you know, a higher number of units in a shorter area, so it makes
yes.
economic sense. And it makes such economic sense that the private sector is out there buying them for a premium because they make money. Why, in a municipal sense, did we give away the farm? That same infrastructure, if it makes sense for the private industry, why wouldn't you allow those lots to be individually owned? The land use and the character isn't going to be any different. Suddenly the municipality is owning, for example, the sewer infrastructure or the water infrastructure, and it makes sense because they're high density and you make money per unit on those, just like the private sector does, but you've outlawed that through your local zoning. Does that make any sense whatsoever?
I'm just saying.
I'm not saying they belong everywhere,
It could be a
but where you're
land,
gonna allow them, put in standards, allow them. You know, we even talked about, you know, establishing a fund so that they can do, you know, other parts of the country, they have cooperative ownerships of them. It's not somebody else sucking the profit off. It's owned in common. I own my own unit. So again, another different place for people to start building, you know, first home, start building equity.
Mhm.
When I looked at, when we were doing the DRI presentation, the nine units that were available for $250,000 or less were townhouses and manufactured homes. That was it. Those were the choices. So it builds part of the market, by outlawing it, then you have said effectively, you're not interested in filling that part of the market. I would suspect when you hear from your residents, there's going to be a great deal of them that are going to say, you have to do this because you're not doing anything for me. If you've husband and wife that are working at one of your larger employers or any of your larger employers, they can't afford to live in Canandaigua, you're not serving them. And you'll quickly lose Canandaigua that way. And there's one thing that Bloomfield, they said it to me. I was very, very proud of them. They said, look, we've seen a decline in kids in Bloomfield school districts over the past decade too. That's who Bloomfield is, right? And if you go from, at what point in time is 60 kids graduating going to be enough to continue on? There's no place else to go there. Pretty soon you're not going to be Bloomfield anymore.
Okay.
So that is a good place
That's
to
fine.
pause. Need to wrap up.
We can do this all day if you want. 108 stuff. It's less than survey.
I don't know if there's any more to talk about today, other than we'll reconvene on this
No,
topic.
it's very helpful. Thank
Next
you.
month. Yeah, very
So
educational.
we will reach back out to you when we get, or when we're ready to have our dog and pony show for the public.
Let us know when that is.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you'll see me at an LDC meeting too, so I'll keep you informed as to where we are in the process. Yep, and Greg, we'd love to come back and Canandaigua is critically important.
Well, I think it would be good for other boards and committees to hear this as well. So we're all coming at it from at least that same educated standpoint.
Yeah.